The story begins with a boy named Tsubasa looking out of the car window and seeing heavy snowfall. He asks the driver to drop him off as he's close to his destination. While taking in the scenery, he experiences a feeling of peace and freedom. There are no people or cars around, which is quite different from bustling Tokyo. However, the cold, dense air in Hokkaido makes him very uncomfortable. He reflects on his father's decision to move there at this time of year, realizing it might not have been the best choice. To make matters worse, he notices that his cell phone's battery is running low. Suddenly, he encounters a blonde girl on his path. Tsubasa thinks she looks like a Jaru because she is dressed short for winter. The girl looks at him, and he shows her a map, asking for directions to her destination. After she provides directions, Tsubasa decides to continue walking. However, the girl stops him and inquires if he plans to walk there. He replies affirmatively, saying he'll go on foot. She informs him that it will take him 3 hours to reach his destination, which surprises him. He had no idea it would take so long to get to a nearby district. The girl explains that the Kitami region is quite large. As he regains his composure, Tsubasa regrets taking the taxi so early, thinking he could have walked a shorter distance. Tsubasa lifts his head and decides he'll take another taxi. However, the girl tells him that taxis don't go to that area. He insists and asks if he can call a taxi to pick him up. She informs him that if he's lucky, a taxi might arrive in about 30 minutes. Tsubasa reluctantly accepts that he's in a bit of a predicament. But then, the girl kindly invites him to wait for the bus with her. She explains that the bus will arrive in just 5 minutes and will also stop at his destination. Hearing this, he becomes excited and thanks her for saving him from waiting for 30 minutes. Curious about his background, she asks where he's from. Tsubasa explains that he recently moved from Tokyo. Upon hearing this, she's amazed and wonders why he moved to Kitami from Tokyo so suddenly. He tells her it was because of family reasons. She comments that compared to Tokyo, Kitami is a rather ordinary place. She speculates that he might consider the locals tacky. However, Tsubasa disagrees and says he actually finds peace in Kitami. Her words remind him of when he was bullied, often being called tacky and unpopular. Even though he lived in Tokyo, he still felt out of place in the eyes of many. Now, in a new place, he's relieved that people haven't labeled him as tacky yet. The girl is curious to learn more about him and asks about his age. He reveals that he's 16, which excites her as they are the same age. She inquires about his school, and he mentions he'll be studying at Hokkaido. This excites her even more because she'll also be attending the same school. She takes him by the arm, making him slightly embarrassed, but he lets her continue due to the cold weather. She asks him to relax and speak in a less formal way. When she sneezes, he shows concern and offers her a tissue. Despite the cold, Tsubasa appears excited, as he's never had this much contact with a girl during his time in Tokyo. He begins to wonder if all the girls in Hokkaido are as friendly as her. While on the bus, she keeps calling him, but he doesn't answer. In response, she playfully puts snow inside his shirt, causing him to complain about the cold. In the midst of this awkward situation, he accidentally blurts out that she's very pretty, making her blush with embarrassment. As her bus arrives, she asks for his name, and he tells her he's Shiki Tsubasa. She introduces herself as Fuyuki Minami and leaves, saying she'll see him at school later. Tsubasa celebrates, feeling happy about his encounter in Hokkaido. His father sends a message asking if he has arrived yet, prompting him to remember that he should have taken the bus with Minami. As he thinks about Minami, she wishes they could end up in the same class. The next day, Tsubasa goes to his new class and introduces himself as Shiki Tsubasa. He informs his new classmates that he just moved there from Tokyo the day before. After the introduction, the teacher instructs him to take a seat in the row next to the corridor. As he scans the classroom, he doesn't see Minami and assumes she must be in a different class, which disappoints him. However, Tsubasa tries to convince himself that he doesn't have any romantic feelings for her. He believes that he prefers serious, dark-haired girls and attributes his surprise at meeting Minami to the fact that she is unlike anyone he has met before. But to his surprise, Minami enters the room while he's talking about her. When she spots him, she immediately approaches him, causing the teacher to scold him for being late. Tsubasa is taken aback, as he didn't expect such cliché movie-like situations to happen to him. During the class, Minami compliments him on his beautiful name. Adding to his confusion, she addresses him by his first name, and he clarifies that only his family and friends call him Tsubasa. The class continues, and Tsubasa starts to feel extremely cold, wondering how anyone can concentrate in such chilly conditions. He worries about catching a cold. Noticing his discomfort, Minami lends him an extra jacket to help him keep warm. Tsubasa notices that the jacket still carries her warmth, and a pleasant scent, making him feel as though he's receiving a comforting hug from her. However, he decides to redirect his thoughts, fearing that his hormones might distract him from focusing on his studies. When the class finally ends, Tsubasa expresses his gratitude to Minami for the jacket and offers to wash it for her. However, Minami explains that she was just enjoying the combined scent of both of them on the jacket and suggests that he could find another way to thank her. She asks Tsubasa to accompany her when she leaves school that day since she won't have anyone else to walk with. Despite having met just the day before, she already considers him a close friend. Tsubasa agrees and asks her where she lives. Minami informs him that she will take a train home, so he only needs to walk with her to the station. During their walk, she curiously inquires if he has a girlfriend, and he responds that he is currently single. Minami finds it amusing that he emphasized his relationship status and asks him about his favorite spots for dates in Tokyo. Tsubasa admits that he has never been on a date before and shares that he prefers places where you can eat and go for a walk. He asks Minami about her favorite places for walks in Kitami, and she explains that they tend to stay home during the cold winter. Tsubasa realizes that their conversation has become quite direct and attempts to clear his impure thoughts. Upon reaching her destination, he bids her farewell. However, before parting ways, Minami invites him to her house the next day, as there won't be any classes. She expresses her curiosity about Tokyo and her desire to learn more from him. Although hesitant, Tsubasa eventually agrees to visit her house, feeling that their relationship is progressing positively. They exchange contact information, and Tsubasa returns home. The following day, Tsubasa stands in front of Minami's house, feeling a bit apprehensive about the situation. It marks his first time visiting a girl's house, and he remembers that he must keep it a secret from his family to avoid getting into trouble. He finally decides to go in and calls out to her. Minami welcomes him inside, mentioning that her parents aren't at home. She leads him to the living room, and he notices the warmth from the floor heating. She explains that her bedroom is colder due to a small heater, which puts Tsubasa at ease, as he believes they won't engage in anything inappropriate in the living room. However, Minami starts teasing him with playful touches and asks what they should do next. Tsubasa hesitates but eventually suggests watching a movie he brought from home. As Minami starts playing the movie, an awkward and freaky scene unfolds, making Tsubasa feel tense. During the movie, she playfully touches him with her foot, and when he looks at her, he discovers that she has fallen asleep. Tsubasa considers her careless for sleeping next to a stranger. After a while, she finally wakes up, and Tsubasa prepares to leave, leaving the DVD with her to finish watching. As he heads home, she chases after him and apologizes for falling asleep during the movie. Tsubasa ignores the apology and expresses concern that she might catch a cold in her current clothing due to the cold weather. In response, she takes his hand and suggests buying him something to eat as a way to make amends for what happened. Before her class the next day, Fayuki gets busy making a snowman. Seeing that it turns out really well, she decides to take a photo with it and share the moment on social media. Her smile in the picture is clear and bright. On her way to class, she spots Tsubasa reading a poster and quietly approaches him. Whispering in his ear, she asks what he's looking at, making Tsubasa's heart race. Fayuki notices he's looking at a poster about an upcoming cultural festival. She asks if he's interested, and Tsubasa, intrigued by the event being this weekend, thinks it might be worth a visit. Hearing his response, Fayuki smiles and suggests they could go together. Tsubasa is taken aback. Going to a festival with a girl seems like a date to him. Later, at Fayuki's house during dinner with her family, they notice her father hasn't come home yet. Her mother mentions that her dad has the next day off, proposing a family walk. Fayuki and her sibling agree, but she has to decline later because she plans to meet a friend at the winter festival. This news disappoints her little sister. Her mother remembers how Fayuki always loved festivals, especially in her elementary school day. When her father finally arrives, Fayuki sits there, lost in thought, staring at an image of the Kitami Winter Festival. The following day, while braving the cold, Tsubasa recalls Fayuki's message from the previous day. She had asked him to meet her at 11 near the station. The idea of a date with her seems unbelievable to him. Tsubasa can't help but notice the cute emoji in Fayuki's message. He looks at a photo she sent of herself next to the snowman, looking pretty, which excites him to the point of being overwhelmed. He tries to calm down, thinking he needs to stay composed to get through the date. Tsubasa convinces himself that Fayuki invited him just because she's kind and noticed he doesn't have many friends. But his attempt to keep things casual falls apart when she finally arrives. Tsubasa nearly loses it when he sees how stunning Fayuki looks. He's struck by the intensity of his feelings, especially since her outfit is more covered up than usual, which somehow makes her even more appealing to him. Fayuki notices his reaction and asks if he thinks she looks beautiful. Tsubasa, after calming down a bit, agrees she is beautiful, but his response comes off as a bit distant. Fayuki feels like she might have pressured him into saying it. To change the subject, Tsubasa asks about her childhood memories of the festival. He's excited to see the ice statues and other unique things in Hokkaido. Fayuki, seeing his enthusiasm, shyly tells him not to get too worked up, but Tsubasa doesn't really hear her and just keeps going. When they finally get to the lively festival, Tsubasa is amazed and excitedly comments on how incredible it is, even though Fayuki starts to say something less enthusiastic. Seeing a statue, Fayuki mentions how it looked bigger to her as a child. Then, Tsubasa wants to take a photo of the sculpture, but Fayuki jumps in, pulling him into a selfie. Tsubasa is caught off guard by how nice she smells, and he makes a silly face in the photo, leaving him embarrassed when Fayuki sees it. While Tsubasa is panicking about the photo, Fayuki smells something delicious and suggests they get food. Tsubasa picks a breaded hot dog, even adding sugar to it, while Fayuki opts for yakitori. When he comes back, Fayuki wants to try his hot dog. As she takes a big bite, Tsubasa feels a strange thrill and starts to think of her bite as somewhat improper. He's also concerned about the indirect kiss that might happen if he eats from the same spot she bit from. Tsubasa, trying to act cool, forces himself to take a bite of his food. But when he does, he notices Fayuki watching him with a red face and a teasing look. He asks what's up, and she playfully tells him he's too easy to read. They continue their date, enjoying a fun and almost romantic atmosphere. They sit down to drink amazake, a traditional sweet drink. Tsubasa is amazed by the snow and the ambience, which makes Fayuki laugh. He then gets serious, mentioning that he's only ever lived in Tokyo and has never experienced anything like Hokkaido's beauty. It's still Japan, but feels completely different to him. He thanks Fayuki for the day, and she blushes, touched by his words. She admits she was worried he wouldn't enjoy the festival, but being with Tsubasa makes her appreciate her city more. His happiness makes her happy, and she thanks him for coming with her. As Fayuki talks about her love for her city, she suddenly loses her balance. Tsubasa quickly catches her, preventing her from falling. They end up face to face, close and breathless, leaving both of them embarrassed. When they stand up, Fayuki thanks him in her local dialect. Later, Tsubasa asks if they can go out like this again, and Fayuki seizes the chance to tease him, asking if he really wants to spend more time with her. She then mentions her wish to visit the Sapporo festival someday, hinting at another outing together. At school during lunch, Fayuki surprises Tsubasa by bringing him some noodles. She noticed his excitement for trying new things at the festival and wanted to introduce him to more of Hokkaido's culture. Tsubasa becomes shy when he realizes she's been paying attention to his reactions. Fayuki then shows him how to prepare the noodles with hot water from her Stanley bottle. After waiting the necessary time, Tsubasa is impressed by how practical the meal is. Fayuki points out a clever use for the leftover Chinese soup broth from the cup noodles, suggesting he can make soup with it. She offers him the dish, which is full but not exactly nutritious. Tsubasa is struck by the aroma and look of the noodles. Fayuki feeds him a bite with chopsticks, and he enjoys the taste, commenting on the noodles' quality. Fayuki playfully says that this meal makes up for her antics at the festival. Tsubasa blushes at the memory, but denies he's flustered. Changing the subject, Fayuki asks to see his lunchbox, and he shows her a normal bento, which excites her, wondering if it's a special dish. She even asks to take a photo of it, surprising Tsubasa with her enthusiasm, but he offers her a taste anyway. When Fayuki tries the meat, she describes it as beautiful and is amazed by its flavor and tenderness, jokingly considering marrying Tsubasa's grandmother to enjoy such delicious food forever. After they finish eating, Tsubasa expresses his amazement, mentioning that this was his first time eating cup noodles. Fayuki is surprised and starts to think Tsubasa must be a pampered rich boy from Tokyo because of his unfamiliarity with such common experiences. However, Tsubasa corrects her, insisting that his family isn't wealthy. Fayuki, curious about his life, suggests visiting his house. Tsubasa finds her request odd but agrees. He's a bit anxious because his grandmother is at home. At his house, Fayuki's playful attitude leads them to an igloo-like structure left by children. She pulls him inside the cramped space, teasing him with ambiguous comments about it being his first time and how warm it is inside. Tsubasa finds the situation uncomfortable and tight, and he tries to leave, but Fayuki insists they stay a bit longer in the confined space. Her movements and sounds make the situation seem suggestive. Just as Tsubasa is overwhelmed by the closeness and the implications, they hear someone calling for him. It's his grandmother, who asks what they were doing in the igloo, hinting that she heard some questionable noises. Tsubasa panics, realizing he needs to come up with a quick explanation for their innocent but seemingly compromising situation. During a playful moment, Fayuki teases Tsubasa about being too hasty during their first intimate moment together in the igloo. She jokes that he should have savored it more, leading to an awkward but humorous break in their conversation. When Fayuki meets Tsubasa's grandmother, she introduces herself and mentions enjoying some of his lunch, which initially doesn't sit well with the grandmother. However, Fayuki's compliment about the tasty food softens her a bit. The grandmother inquires about Fayuki's relationship with her grandson. Tsubasa, a bit anxious, quickly says they're just classmates, to which Fayuki reluctantly agrees. As snow begins to fall, Fayuki decides it's time to leave, noting that she and Tsubasa have more to do. Tsubasa, feeling he's messed up by not being more assertive with his grandmother, worries about the future of his life in Hokkaido. Fayuki then reappears, concerned about Tsubasa's grandmother using an umbrella in the snow. She advises against it, explaining the importance of having free hands in case of a slip and suggesting better ways to deal with the snow, like avoiding thin ice. Fayuki then offers to show a safer path and carries the grandmother's bag, telling her to take better care of herself. Tsubasa offers to carry the bag, but Fayuki hands it over with a pout, still teasing Tsubasa about being just classmates. Tsubasa explains his situation with his grandmother and whispers to Fayuki that she is a very important friend, leading to more playful teasing from her. Upon arriving at his house, Fayuki is impressed by its size. The grandmother invites her in to thank her for her help. Inside, the grandmother reflects on her age, deciding to trust Tsubasa's choice in friends, believing Fayuki must be a good girl. However, Fayuki starts taking photos of everything in the house, playfully mocking Tsubasa for being rich, which changes the grandmother's opinion again. But seeing her grandson happy with Fayuki, she decides to give Fayuki a chance. Back at school, they are arranging pairs for a ski class. Tsubasa finds out he's paired with Akino and will be skiing behind Fayuki, setting the stage for further developments in their school life and relationship. This brings an end to our episode. If you enjoyed it, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe our channel for next episode.